Good evening. Welcome back to Front Page Close-Up for our third and final segment of our show on the Egyptian Revolution with Nonie Darwish. Nonie, welcome back to the program.
My pleasure.
Nonie, so let's begin with this for this third segment and final segment. If the Muslim Brotherhood does take over, as we said in the last segment, and you said that it might even be a kind of a gradual, sneaky takeover, what will it mean for America and for Israel? What will it mean for Egyptian people?
They won't, for the Egyptian people, they won't have their democracy that they fought for and revolted against. My prediction, if they take over, all the educated classes and the classes that want democracy are going to probably flee Egypt, just like what happened in Iran. A whole bunch of people.
Nonie, is it possible to gauge how many really want democracy, do you think? How many want a secular democracy?
Probably, I would say, if the ones who understand what democracy is,
yeah.
I would say the Coptic Christians, that's for sure, that's 10%, and another, let's say, 10% of Egypt.
So
about 20% who understand what democracy is.
And that's a sad figure in the sense of who would be taking over in terms of Islamic law becoming the law of the land.
So it's not the 20% that are Muslim Brotherhood,
yes.
and 80% are the freedom seekers.
Yeah.
It's exactly the opposite of what Obama said. It is 20% who really want freedom and democracy, and 80% who are going to be swayed and seduced by the Muslim Brotherhood.
Nonie, let's look a bit closer then at the pathologies here in the culture and in Islam. Why, in your books, you explain that you believe that a lot of the problems actually start in the family. Mm-hmm. That there's a very dysfunctional families, that families are dysfunctional. Can you talk about that a bit, that families are actually at war with each other?
That's exactly what happened. Islam does not bring peace inside the family. By nature, Islam, the Muslim marriage contract, asks the husband, please name an address of wife number 1, wife number 2, wife number 3, if any.
Right.
Even if the man doesn't have a second wife. Every woman who lives under Sharia knows that these 3 spaces can be filled with other women.
So polygamy causes a lot of dysfunction.
So polygamy is the root of the dysfunction in the marriage. It starts with the marriage. And then putting all the laws swayed against women and in favor of men, that further fractures.
Yeah.
So you really have to be, even if the man is a good husband.
Yeah.
But in the back of the mind of a woman, in time of trouble, and every marriage has to go through trouble.
Yeah.
She could have a second wife, and then there is no her custody rights. All of it is against.
Now.
Women.
You also wrote one of the things you loved very much about America when you came here is you noticed that women support each other. Mm-hmm. And I was very touched by that, reading that in your book. Women do not support each other in that structure in Egypt, right? It divides them, am I correct? So as victims, they don't bind together?
No. First of all, they're segregated. Mm-hmm. And Muslim women in general are so isolated. It's not just the garb that they wear that makes them. You don't even see the face sometimes.
Yeah.
So how can you form friendships when you want to leave the house? You have to have your husband's permission.
Yeah.
And also, they are very limited in their surroundings and having friends. Very often, when a husband and wife get married, he picks who she can be friends with and who she should not be friends
with. But Nonie, I mean,
so there is no.
You see, I don't understand also, I'm just going to be honest, like, why do, like, in terms of the Muslim Brotherhood and these Islamists, what is this thing with just being around guys all the time, like, and hanging around with men all the time? Why don't you want to see women Like if I lived in a society where I can only hang around with men all the time, I would be probably pretty angry too.
Yeah.
Why this hatred of women?
And same thing with women.
And why this hatred of women, and why do the men only want to see men all the time? Why do they need to cover women?
Well, that's what Muhammad was interested in doing, and he codified it in law. He made women so separated from men. And I think that the purpose of that was to make men ready to go to war.
Yeah, to get them frustrated, and then they maybe can have sex in heaven with the virgins.
And then he promises them with all the ultimate pleasure and sex in heaven.
So forbid joy on earth, and the only way you can get it is in heaven.
And also, even if you get married, he has so many laws to fracture the relationship between men and women.
Yeah.
And so that's why that society is so frustrated and so oppressed and repressed that the only way to that jihad is the only outlet.
And you've also talked about how touched you were too in some of our own discussions about marriage here in America in terms of, in Christianity, the devotion between one man and one woman to each other.
Absolutely.
Whereas in Islam, as you're writing, it fractures the family.
Absolutely,
right?
Because the Judeo-Christian marriage is the foundation for the family. And put aside all of the changes in marriage values in the West and the high divorce rate, but the basic Judeo-Christian marriage makes the unit, the one man, one woman unit, is probably the most sacred
and it leads to a healthier society.
And it leads to a happier family. And a more stable society, absolutely.
Nonie, we just have a couple minutes left. I want to touch on some points quickly. Now, just in terms of all this women hating, at the same time, Egypt has a tradition of like this belly dancing, doesn't it? Now, is this an Arabic thing, or it's also more Egypt?
It didn't come from the Arabian Peninsula. I think it's very Egyptian and Turkish.
Now, did that go on a lot, or does the Muslim Brotherhood doesn't like belly dancing?
No, they are actually threatening all the belly dancers in Egypt.
But belly dancing still goes on?
It still goes on.
Okay.
But it's they no longer can sew flesh. They have to cover a little bit.
If there were more belly dancers, maybe they would overthrow the Muslim Brotherhood, right? Now, on a personal level, I'm a little bit upset with you. You promised me that you might introduce me to Miss Egypt that won the pageant there. Am I correct? Do you know her?
Absolutely. She's waiting for you.
No, but are you going to introduce me?
In Tahrir Square.
No, but is she still in Egypt?
I'm sure she is.
But you might introduce me to her eventually, maybe?
Absolutely.
Well, okay, you keep saying
let's meet in Tahrir Square.
No, but please arrange some kind of email or something, okay?
There are very wonderful, lovely Egyptian women.
No, I know, but Miss Egypt, you
Miss
said
Egypt
that
especially.
So
I promise.
Okay, thank you, Nonie. Now, on a serious note, before we go, actually very serious, where I was very touched by your books, Nonie. You're a courageous woman, a great freedom fighter, but you lost a lot in the sense that you were it must be very painful to be excommunicated by your family, to have, I think that your mom kind of is disappointed in you, to say the least, that you left Islam.
To say the least, yeah.
Tell us a little bit of the pain, because for instance, we're experts on the left at FrontPage, and obviously of other things, but David Horowitz and others write about how painful it is for the leftists to leave the leftist family. Tell us a little bit about the Muslim that left and the pain of being excommunicated.
Ever since my first book came out, my family completely disowned me. I was disinherited, and my mother have never called me again. And during the revolution, just a few days ago, because I know that her neighborhood is close, not very close, but a little close to the jail where many people escaped. So I called to check if she's okay.
Because you worry for her?
Yeah, and she wouldn't talk to me.
But you still sometimes wish and long that she'll call and say, I love you and I accept you.
Absolutely.
And is this very heavy on your soul, or have you learned to live with it?
I learned to live with it. It's very sad, but unfortunately, many Egyptian families and Muslim families are so fractured, and so there's so much anger.
But Nonie, there's some people that couldn't take the pain and they go back to Islam. Have you ever thought, oh, you know, maybe let me go back to Islam and my mom will accept me? You've had those urges? Or?
No, I can't be not myself. I have to be myself.
And you've accepted that perhaps until you leave this earth, that hopefully won't be for many, many decades, because you're about 28, I think, 30?
Oh.
No, but you've accepted that you might not be accepted by your family, right? You're not longing for it, or?
I long, sometimes I do, but I've accepted it in a way, in a sad part of my life, and I had to turn the page. Thank God I have wonderful children who are very supportive, and they are all
now
love what I'm doing.
That's beautiful. Now, Nonie, do you believe in God?
Absolutely.
Do you believe that your Father is somewhere looking down at you?
Yes.
Do you think that he's disappointed or happy with you?
No, I think he's happy.
You think he's happy with you?
Absolutely. Actually, whenever I speak, there's always a Muslim who asks me the same question.
Yeah.
You have been a traitor to your dad. How come you support the Jews when you know that they've killed him? I get this question a lot, and my answer is always that I consider my father, as well as the Jews, to be the victims of jihad.
Right. So, and in many ways, you've made peace with your dad.
Absolutely.
Last question. You get a phone call tonight. The Egyptians can't manage. They need Nonie Darwish to come to Egypt and set up the new government. You go to Egypt, you become president. 2, 3 things you would do if you had total power to make a new constitution and create a foundation for what Egypt would be like.
Absolutely, that's a great question.
Am I doing as well as O'Reilly in some ways?
Excellent, okay, better than O'Reilly.
Okay, thank you. Go on.
You seem to be like you're a natural.
Keep the compliments coming. I like this.
I think number one is to have a constitutional amendment stating that separation of mosque and state. That's the number one thing, because if they do that, then Sharia will not be the law of the land.
Right, separation of mosque and state?
They can keep the religion, whatever it is, Christianity or Islam, but government cannot be supporting Sharia law.
Mandatory coverings for women?
No.
Or, obviously, I'm joking, but you would, no, I know, but I'm saying in the sense that you would give freedom to women, not to male, right?
Number 2, equal rights under the law, regardless of gender, regardless of religion, and national origin, or any. And if they have these 2 laws, which is equal rights and the separation of church and state, no more Sharia to follow, and then we can have democracy.
And you would ban female genital mutilation?
It's already, I think, banned by the government now, but the peasants still do it.
But you would try to maybe to enforce somehow to stop
exactly.
it, right? But the clerks
they do it behind they do it behind the government.
Would you appoint me as a minister of something?
Absolutely, of information.
Okay. Nonie Darwish, great honor to be in the presence of a freedom fighter. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Jamie, thank you.
Make sure you get Nonie Darwish's incredible books. They're critically acclaimed, Cruel and Usual Punishment, and her wonderful memoir, fascinating, Now They Call Me Infidel. Join us for another edition soon. Thank you.